Hello, welcome once again, Dayton, to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. Every single week, Tim helps you out with retirement planning solutions. Tim, how are you doing this week, buddy?
Doing great, Spike. How about you?
I'm doing very well. You have put together a wonderful program here today. We've got to talk about some serious topics. We're going to talk about some of the things that elders can look out for, especially when it comes to scams, when it comes to fraud, whether it's through electronics, high-pressure sales, and maybe we can actually talk about some clients that you've helped out and help keep them safe into their own retirement. There's never really been a time that's easy to have these kinds of tough conversations with clients or a potential client, especially if somebody just calls in from your television or your coming up radio show. But you do have to start having these conversations. Is it in the first meeting that you start talking to people about stuff like this, or is it more as you get to know them, you can be a little bit more comfortable?
Well, Spike, I will tell you, a lot of times the people that are coming into our office have a comfort level discussing these types of topics with us. The issue is a lot of times with their parents. That's really where we find, when we look at the things that you just described of elder fraud, I can't tell you how many times we've had a story of an email scam, a telephone scam, so many of those stories out there, and it's important that families are keeping conversations and keeping the communication lines open. And if there's a doubt there, make a phone call.
There's a lot of things about money and having conversations with them that Americans still aren't quite comfortable with, whether it's out of pride, whether it's out of just not wanting to step over one another's boundaries. But it's one of the things I've always loved about your firm at Action Planning and Wealth is that you help people really break open and start to have those conversations.
Well, it's how they were raised, Spike.
Yeah.
You look at, World War II generation, Depression era parents, they just could not say enough about how important it is to keep that stuff tight to the vest, to not discuss your finances with anyone, especially your kids. And so to break out of that pattern that mom and dad kind of drilled into you is not easy.
Right. Now, what's even more difficult during these times is trying to tell the difference between what is normal business practices and how the world has changed today and what might be potentially fraud. A client of yours recently, we were discussing, we like to do a lot of case studies, bring that out to our viewers out here to share with you the kinds of solutions that Tim provides. Long-term care, very, very difficult today. We're living longer than we ever have. You were helping a family recently. What was part of their discovery?
Well, one of the things to understand about long-term care insurance, at least traditional long-term care insurance, is there was really only two companies that really dominated that space. And I will tell you, neither of them want to be in that space any longer. They have no interest in the risk of people going to long-term care because of the rising cost, and they got some of the numbers wrong, Spike. But we had a client that called, this is a few months ago, and wanted help. Mom and dad had early stages of dementia, not to where they couldn't live at home, but just to where they needed some additional help. And it had gotten to the point where they had a practice of, if something came in the mail, they didn't recognize it or didn't know what to do with it, they would simply take the mail and put it in a drawer. When the kids would come by, when they came to visit, they would kind of get that stuff out and go through it. And unfortunately, one of the items that they put in that drawer was their renewal for their long-term care policy. And it had been more than 60 days, and the insurance company had actually canceled their policy.
So it wasn't fraud. This
No.
was regular business practice. We hear a lot of things about long-term care today, either the doubling of premiums or canceling, and you've really, really got to pay attention. So even when you've got a structured instrument like a long-term care policy, it helps to have a financial advisor kind of walk you through all of the different tools. You ever been overwhelmed walking into Home Depot? I know I have. There's a lot of tools in there, right?
There's a lot of tools. I'm always looking for help.
Yeah, but when it comes to your financial planning, the same thing. Now, are there alternative long-term care solutions that you were able to help a family with this out with?
Well, in this case, unfortunately, there was nothing that we could do. But for the folks at home, there was an easy solution here, and that is with any type of policy like that, you can have your name added to be part of that mailing that goes out. So if there's going to be a cancellation of a policy, as a friend, family member, you can actually receive that same letter, get copied on that letter saying, hey, this hasn't been paid, which opens up that dialogue where they could have simply called mom and dad and said, hey, have you seen this bill come through? We can also add ourselves as the advisor to where we receive that letter as well. And then that way you have, 3 different people that are looking for that information and could have easily protected them in this scenario. And it's always tough. You always want to be able to help, and sometimes in this case there was nothing that we could do.
But at least you're sharing that with your audience here today, the kinds of things to kind of be on the lookout for. Make sure that you take a look at your policies from time to time. Make sure you review your beneficiaries. Have people maybe outside of yourself and your spouse know at least what some of the tools are that tell the kids, hey, don't worry about long-term care. We've got this policy, but every now and then we have to review it. That's part of your collection pool of what you do, right? Exactly,
and that kind of brings up the conversation that we kind of started the show off with, Spike, and that is these conversations. If you're at home right now watching, and you were raised by an amazing mom and dad, and they told you don't talk to your kids about stuff, I'm giving you permission to talk to your kids about stuff. It is okay to do that. And for the kids, talking to mom and dad, you have to have that open dialogue. If you feel like you need to do it in our office and have somebody there to kind of facilitate, we do that all the time. But these conversations are so important. Most of the time, I would say probably 3 out of 4 times when we ask about someone's parents, the answer is Tim, we have no idea. We don't know if mom and dad have a long-term care policy. We don't know what mom and dad are doing from an investment standpoint. We don't know what they have in their bank account. We know they're doing well and that everything's okay. Yeah. And sometimes it's not okay. And mom and dad simply aren't sharing that. Yeah. And so communication and family meetings is what we have in our office, where everybody can kind of sit around the table and you talk about what you feel comfortable talking about, and you don't share what you don't feel comfortable with sharing, but you're going to end up with a better retirement, a safer retirement, and understand that us, your kids, they want to protect you. Right. And so it's important to leverage that. And part of the way that we can kind of start facilitating that conversation is by you calling the phone number right here so you can get started on your own family retirement blueprint. We're going to take a look at your investments, your taxes, your estate planning, your healthcare choices, and see if everything is working together. So first of all, to make sure you, and if you have one, your spouse, are on the same page together, and maybe you can also start that conversation with your kids as well. Call 855-684-3485 so you can get started on your own complimentary retirement blueprint. Tim is broadcasting all over Dayton here, so we're going to have to limit it to the first 10 callers. Call 855-684-3485. Stay tuned for this message. Tim will tell you more about the retirement blueprint. Retirement is about choosing where you want to go and mapping out a plan to get there. That's why I created the Retirement Blueprint. Of course, things don't always go according to plan. Come learn how our team can help you avoid potential hazards and find alternate routes. We're here to do life with you and share your journey. Let us blueprint your life to keep you on track to make sure you get the most out of retirement. Are you on the road to success? Call us today for a complimentary review to find out. Let us plan your tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. Tim, every single week, talks about retirement planning strategies for you, the folks right here in Dayton. And one of the things, we're smiling right now because we enjoy doing the program and the education, but we do want to make seniors out there aware there's all different kinds of fraud and scams out there. Have you ever heard of this Nigerian prince in your email? Yes. Yeah, millions and millions. You just got to write them an email back. But no, there are scary stories out there. And one of the reasons of having a financial advisor, it's almost kind of like your own insurance policy. If you're being pitched something that sounds too good to be true, if somebody's trying to tell you you need to act before you hang up the phone, your first option should be to hang up that phone and call your financial advisor, right? Are you willing to help out your clients with all of these kinds of phone calls and scams and pressures?
Yes, and I mean, unfortunately, I've been on the side where they haven't. I get the call after the fact, and they're like, it usually starts off with, Tim, I think we made a mistake. I think we did something we shouldn't have done.
Ouch.
But often we also get the calls of, hey, somebody's called or emailed and said this. Do you think this is a real thing? And they'll actually print out, the email or whatever and bring it in. And, it's understand that, and I think especially for retirees, you want these things to be true. You want to have, won the grand prize. You want to have found love. You want to, help out the Nigerian prince.
Well, we have heard this one so many times that it's starting in the dating world, and this goes to a topic we had talked about on a previous program. We're talking about second marriages in retirement, even third marriages in retirement. We talked about the Tinder retirement home on one program where people are dating now as they're in their retirement homes, but being careful with your assets. And that's one of them. We all want to believe that we're going to find love, but be careful about where we're meeting people. A lot of these apps, a lot of online places and so forth, we want to make sure that we're getting to know people, vetting them first, right?
And a lot of times it's a slow play. I mean, you see, these relationships, it's not like you meet on the internet and you talk a couple times and then they ask you for $10,000. These emails go back and forth, sometimes for months. And then all of a sudden there's something that'll come out of, I would love to come see you, but, I live in Europe and I need money for a plane ticket and spending money. Can you send it? Or, there's one of those heartstring stories where something's happened to one of my grandkids and they need a surgery and, I just don't have the money. Those are the types of things where, and because people are already vested, they're already, kind of in that situation where they're like, they really care about this person. They've built a relationship with this person. There's a level of trust there. They want these things to be true. They want to help. And unfortunately, it turns into they send the money and they never hear from the people again.
But this is part of what you have to do. Literally, like, so you're required by law to keep an eye out on your clients, the activity that's going on. So you kind of act not just as a fiduciary for their money and for their investments, but kind of their own personal lives. Are you able to sometimes see anomalies either in behavior or spending just by being a steward of their finances?
Yeah, I mean, where this typically will come up is somebody will call in and they'll say, I need $10,000. And, we've made it a common practice, not that we're being nosy, it's their money, right? But, just out of protection, tell me a little bit about, what the dollars are for. And so we're always looking for that anomaly of, that story doesn't sound, quite right. I think about, we had a client that received a email that they'd won Publishers Clearinghouse. And I mean, they printed it out and brought in the email, and I'm looking at this thing, and it had all of the logos on it and all of these things, and the catch was the thing that really stood out, other than the fact that there wasn't a van with balloons there giving them a big check.
Because they'll come with cameras.
They do. They don't send
send
you an email about this. But again, this person wanted it to be true. It was $10,000. They wanted it to be true. They wanted to believe they were a winner. And they brought in the email, and we're looking at it, and of course the catch was they had to pay the taxes up front so that they could bring them the check. And they're like, that just doesn't sound right. I'm like, I can assure you it's not right. Yeah. They deal with the taxes after the balloons and the van shows up and you get the big giant check, then they'll talk to you about the tax issue. And it was just amazing because the people that are bringing these in, and I think, Spike, this is one of those areas where people, they're like, well, it's somebody that's maybe not really well educated, or they've gotten older. It's not. These are highly intelligent people, very successful people that just simply want the love story to be true. They want the prize to be true. They want that good news. We all like good news.
Yeah.
But when it sounds too good to be true, or it just doesn't add up, that's where the light bulb should go off. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
There are many government studies, online studies. I think one of them came from Bankrate.com, hundreds of millions of dollars in elderly fraud, and they're getting more and more savvy, whether it's coming through an email. Here's one. You're going to see my face get red right now. Apparently, my Social Security number has been suspended. You ever get that phone call? I get this phone call. I don't know what website I signed up for, but they call me threatening that my Social Security number has been suspended. You better press 1 right now, or the federal police are going to be coming after you. Folks, the Social Security office is not going to call you. They're not going to call you at home. Neither is the IRS.
They're not going to call you back when you need them.
They're just too busy, but things like that. And so whether it's phone calls, so what are maybe some of the red flags, some general red flags that you might be able to tell folks to kind of look out for when they hear these things?
I mean, usually these calls start with that you have an immediate problem. There's something that's going to happen. I had a client that this happened to him multiple times. And I found out about it actually from his wife. He was actually embarrassed, and understandably so, that he fell for this. But he had gotten a call that his computer was going to crash, and that they were monitoring his computer, and that they could sign in and fix it. And it was each time they called, it was a couple hundred for this, a couple hundred for that. They were charging his credit card, and it was always this immediate need, like your hard drive is going to go down, or your Microsoft subscription is going to be canceled. It's always a you've got to act right now kind of scenario. And then they're asking for credit card information or bank information. That's not how it works. Nobody out there knows that your hard drive is going to crash. Right? Your hard drive crashes, then you call somebody and they come fix it. And so anytime that you feel pressured into acting, anytime that there's a scenario where it's something where you have to pay money up front to get a benefit later, it's almost always a scam.
Right. Tim, thank you so much for that. I want to continue to talk about some client case stories like that. But folks, we understand that during these uncertain times, you might not be sure exactly what you need to do or who you can rely on. One of the things you can do is start with a financial advisor who has your best interests in mind, who's right here in your local area. Whether it's us, whether it's someone like us, make sure that you've got someone who has your best interests in mind. You can get started on your own complimentary retirement blueprint by calling 855-684-3485. But during these uncertain times, you want to make sure you've got somebody who's got your back. Watch this commercial break here right now so you can get some more information about the retirement blueprint.
Unexpected events, like a global pandemic, can turn our world upside down overnight. They can cause volatile shifts that may cause you to question the confidence in your current retirement plan. As a retiree or a pre-retiree, knowing you have a plan that can withstand the worst economic conditions is vital. Contact us today for a complimentary review. Get a second opinion and learn more about our trademark process, the Retirement Blueprint. Let us plan your tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. We're talking about the kinds of things today to help you be aware. There's a lot of scam artists. The new digital world moves fast, but you were even saying we've got to be cautious about the charity world. I mean, I don't know. I want to protect my community and help out our church, our education system, our police officers and so forth. You've said, though, we've got to take a skeptical eye when it comes to charities and giving?
Well, with some charities, the larger charities that are out there, obviously, that the Salvation Armies and organizations like that are fine. What we have seen, and I've had this happen to multiple clients, where they have maybe seen a magazine article or something on television, and they've sent off money. A lot of times, interestingly enough, and I don't know why this is the case, it's been for abused animals. That seems to be a big one. And so they're donating money to help abused animals. They see the commercial, and then what happens is they start getting more and more requests, and they start off with smaller dollar amounts. They start to come more frequently. They start to get phone calls, and understand, charities don't operate that way. They're not there trying to bilk you for every dollar you have. And when they start to send you, these stories about, you can help this, this person or this animal out, that you need to send money right away. And we have seen where people have gone from giving kind of what they could afford to giving more than they could afford.
Right. And your focus through trying to screen and help people out is making sure that they can be and stay retired. The giving is wonderful. To being charitable, of course, is wonderful. But you want to make sure, first and foremost, that your clients can be and stay retired, and then see how they can also help out the community. Here's another area, though, I'm reluctant to bring it up because we love our families, we love our kids and our offspring, we want to be able to provide for them. But we also have to be cautious there first. What is it when they say on the airplane, if you lose oxygen, you make sure you put the mask on you first, then you help out the person next to you? What about the kids? What kind of stories have you experienced inside the office?
Well, and I mean, this is a tough situation where, fraud can happen with actual legitimate documents. And so we had a scenario where a client, they had 3 kids, the son was made the financial power of attorney, and everything was fine, and he was very good with money. He was very good with his own money, and really was the perfect choice at the time that they decided to make him their financial power of attorney. Unfortunately, he developed a drug problem. And, it took a while before the parents became aware, but once they did, they actually went and sought advice from us. They changed their financial power of attorney, and they picked their daughter. And so everything up to that point, they did exactly right. The problem is that they did not contact their financial institutions, the people who actually held the power of attorney. And unfortunately, in this case, there was a scenario where, the son took a significant amount of money out of checkings and savings that is not recoverable.
Yeah.
And it was one of those oversights that was a huge oversight. And the frustrating thing is, I mean, obviously there's the hurt and the trust,
loss. Yeah.
but that was a tough one.
And you're saying, though, that this could have been avoidable had there been a third party, someone like yourself, someone who was aware to be able to watch and say, hey, why is this coming out of the bank accounts? Why is this much going on?
Or even if they had asked, one of the things that our estate planning attorney makes a point to do with any change, especially that type of change in power of attorney, is reaching out to the institutions. And so we're physically calling the bank, we're calling the firms and saying, hey, not only do we have a new one of these, but we need to make sure that you destroy the old one. And that's a key takeaway from that story.
And it was the accidental loss that I was thinking about there. So as we get older, sometimes though, I've heard this a lot from friends. Oh, my mom and dad, they put me on their bank account so I can help them pay the bills later. So I've got. But is it a wise idea to start titling our kids onto all of our assets and our accounts?
No, it's actually a huge mistake because you open yourself. I mean, I get the ease of operation there, but the problem with that is that you open yourself up when you add someone else to your account to their problems. If they were to go through a bankruptcy, if they were to be in a car accident and get sued, by having their name on the account, part of those assets become theirs in that scenario. The other situation is, qualifying for nursing home or for Medicaid. When you have someone else on there, all of a sudden now we can look at additional assets and, how much of that money is theirs and how much of that money is yours. It's not the solution. It
can get really sticky. I experienced that at home. My grandmother had actually passed away, and the IRS kept following after my father because he was in charge of her finances to see if there was more money available. And said, she passed away. What do you want? A death certificate? They said, yes. So but ways to avoid this. If we want the kids to be able to help us, want them to be able to pay the bills, what are maybe better solutions?
Well, if a financial power of attorney is okay, if there's a level of comfort there, and I'm reluctant to even say this, but we have several clients who have chosen to give their banking passwords to their kids, to their power of attorneys. In the electronic age, it's easier to be able to go online and do some of those things. And the nice piece of that is that, you know, a lot of times the kids aren't local here in Dayton. They may be in a different state or sometimes even a different country, or they travel a lot. And that allows them to be able to help mom and dad out, to help monitor. You know, we can do the same thing on our side as far as seeing, you know, money flow in and out of an account. But the whole thing comes down to trust, making sure that you have the right person chosen, and if something changes, that you immediately make a change.
As a financial advisor with Axum Planning and Wealth, these are the kinds of things you do every single day in the office. Before we wrap up today's program, do you mind telling the viewers a little bit about what the retirement blueprint means to you?
Sure. You know, we created this trademark process many years ago for one reason and one reason only. We felt as though there was not a good roadmap to retirement. It was, you know, for most firms, it was all about wealth management, and that was kind of the start and stop of planning. And so when you look at retirement, there's more involved in that. You have an income plan, making sure you don't run out of money in retirement. There's the tax plan of how do I get my money out of these tax-deferred programs that I've been saving in for the last 30 years. The estate plan that we've been talking about here on this segment. You have things along the lines of Social Security claiming and Medicare. And, you know, all of those wrap up into what we've created, and that is the retirement blueprint.
And what I find amazing is what we were saying earlier for the first 10 callers. You want to get started on the complimentary retirement blueprint. So you're going to come in for a 90-minute meeting, usually at least?
It's usually around 60 for that first meeting, 90 for the second.
Yeah, oh, and then 90 for a second meeting to go through findings. And all of this process is complimentary. But Tim doesn't know if you need retirement planning strategies implemented unless you reach out to the phone number right here. Call 855-684-3485 so you can get started on your own retirement blueprint. It is complimentary, and all you got to do is reach out to that phone number. We also have the QR code.
We do have the QR code.
Right? Yeah. Hey, folks, you're familiar with that. How many restaurants have you been to recently? You open up your phone, point the camera at that QR code down there, and it'll take you right over to his website. Thank you so much for watching the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. We're going to be back again with more retirement planning solutions again next week. Thank you for watching, Dayton. Have a good week.